On July 21st, just over 5 months ago, President Biden announced he was dropping out of the presidential race. It was just one of the seismic moments that shook the campaign this summer, from a disastrous debate for Biden to a near-miss attempt on the life of Donald Trump. NBC's Joe Fryer looks back now at a year for history.
When 2024 began, America was bracing for an election encore, the 2020 rematch pitting the 46th president against the 45th. But this was a year that defied predictability, one that began with a gaping hole in a plane and ended with empty seats in the next administration as embattled cabinet picks lobbied for votes. In between, a music mogul was jailed while Russian prisoners were freed. War continued to rage in the Middle East, where the royal family fought a very different battle, cancer, twice. In short, it was a year when the Olympic spirit united us as politics divided us, with the road to the White House taking sharp detours following an uncharted path. It started with the race for the Republican nomination. Donald Trump skipped every debate, yet vaulted over the competition.
We don't have a clear path to victory.
Quickly swatting away his challengers.
The time has now come to suspend my campaign.
Trump won on the ballot, but not in the courtroom.
Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty.
He was convicted in May on all 34 counts in his New York hush money trial, though it did not slow him down.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial.
In June, then former President Trump and President Biden went face to face, their first debate of the campaign and what turned out to be the last.
Dealing with everything we have to do with, look, we finally beat Medicare.
The president's halting performance led to calls for him to step aside, calls he initially resisted.
I'm not going anywhere.
All of it leading to July, a month rocked by political earthquakes. The first, a campaign rally.
There has been an incident at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally,
where a bullet grazed Trump's ear. He narrowly escaped the assassination attempt. The spectator was killed. 5 days later, a bandaged Trump took the stage at the Republican National Convention, officially accepting his party's nomination.
I felt very safe because I had God on my side.
The political tremors had barely subsided when just 3 days later, the election's landscape completely changed.
I revere this office, but I love my country more.
Biden dropped out, endorsing his vice president Kamala Harris, who instantly ascended to the top of the ticket.
But America, we are not going back. We are not going back.
The race now recharged. Harris rode a wave of momentum into her first debate with Trump.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that.
All of it comedic fodder for Saturday Night Live.
They're eating the pitch. They're eating Mudang.
What do we always say? Keep Kamala and carry on, Allah.
Ultimately, a nation exhausted by inflation did something it had not done in more than 125 years. Sent a former president back to the White House.
This was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time.
A decisive win followed by a contentious transition, with several controversial cabinet picks set to fight for confirmation in the new year. Overseas, another transition is underway after rebels toppled the Assad regime in Syria. Just the latest shakeup this year in the Middle East as Israel exchanged airstrikes with Iran, battered Hezbollah in Lebanon, and continued to bombard Gaza.
My country is at war, fighting for its life.
We learned a number of hostages were killed, including Israeli-American Hersh Goldberg Poland, while others are still being held captive by Hamas. The conflict sparked pro-Palestinian protests at college campuses across America, with classes and even some commencement ceremonies canceled. The war between Ukraine and Russia continued to grind on, entering its third year, with no signs of a ceasefire in sight. But Russia did agree to a major prisoner swap with the U.S. and other Western nations. At the Wall Street Journal, the newsroom celebrated the release of reporter Evan Gershkovich.
Evan, how are you feeling?
I'm all right. It was a good flight.
Also freed, Marine veteran Paul Wheeling.
Just recuperating from 5 years, 7 months, and 5 days of just absolute nonsense by the Russian government.
A turbulent year for Boeing started in January when a door panel blew off a plane mid-flight.
This is President. We're declaring emergency. We need to descend down to 10,000.
In response, Boeing promised design changes.
I saw the picture everybody saw of the opening, but what I really saw was the empty seat. And I had spent a week with my kids and grandkids, so enough said.
Higher up, 2 astronauts aboard Boeing's new Starliner were supposed to spend a week at the International Space Station. Because of tech problems, they've now been there more than 6 months. They hope to return in March.
It wasn't what we expected. However, we were prepared.
Millions look to space.
The diamond ring!
As a total solar eclipse cast a hypnotic shadow across a long strip of the country.
We are in a sea of strangers right now who are united by this moment to look up at the heavens.
On the water, a cargo ship slammed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. It collapsed, killing 6 men working on the span.
We can still hear the screaming and shooting outside.
Gun violence devastated a high school in Georgia where a gunman killed 2 students and 2 teachers. Authorities say a 14-year-old boy confessed to the murders. He pleaded not guilty. So did his father, who was also charged. According to 2 law enforcement sources, he gifted an assault rifle to his son. Those charges came after a historic case in Michigan.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
There, James and Jennifer Crumbly became the first parents held criminally responsible for a mass shooting committed by their child. The attack happened in 2021. The Crumbleys are now appealing. In December, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare was gunned down on a Manhattan sidewalk in what police called a targeted attack. Days later, police arrested the suspect, a 26-year-old Ivy League grad at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. He has pleaded not guilty. An active hurricane season was headlined by Helene. The Category 4 storm roared ashore along Florida's Gulf Coast, then moved north, where historic floodwaters washed away mountain towns in North Carolina and Tennessee.
A lot of people lost their lives, everything they owned, their homes, everything.
Less than 2 weeks later,
at first we had, okay, we're gonna go, we gotta go.
Another hit, Hurricane Milton. These resilient communities are now promising to rebuild. Much like Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral, the landmark emerged from the ashes 5 years after a voracious fire engulfed centuries of history. Britain's royal family faced incredible health hardships this year. In February, King Charles announced he was diagnosed with cancer. Then a month later, Princess Kate shared her own diagnosis.
This, of course, came as a huge shock.
She slowly resumed her duties after preventative chemotherapy. It was a year of high-profile criminal indictments. Sean Diddy Combs was charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and more. He pleaded not guilty. So did New York's Mayor Eric Adams, who faces corruption charges. As for the cases against President-elect Trump, both the federal election interference case and the Florida classified documents case were dismissed. Well, the current president's son, Hunter Biden, got a legal lifeline, a pardon from his dad, after he was convicted on federal gun charges and pleaded guilty to tax crimes. That pardon drew bipartisan criticism, while a ban on TikTok garnered bipartisan support, though users of the popular app are furious.
Save TikTok!
Are you ready for it?
For Taylor Swift, it was the end of this era. She wrapped up her record-breaking tour as a new generation of female artists emerged, like Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan. Charlie XCX gave us Brat Summer, bathed in a shade of green, perfectly paving the way for a wicked witch named Elphaba. Simone Biles defied gravity, capping off her comeback, becoming the most decorated U.S. gymnast in Olympic history. And a new hero rode in on a horse, a pommel horse. Steven Nedorosik clinched a team medal for the men with a riveting routine. We were also talking about basketball, specifically Caitlin Clark. How will she go for history? Who became the NCAA's all-time leading scorer. She was the #1 draft pick in the WNBA draft, leading a surge in popularity for women's sports. A hard-court hero blazing an inspiring trail that's leading us right into 2025. For Sunday Today, Joe Fryer, New York.
All that just in the last 12 months. Joe, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.